And then rounding out my card draw effects, we've got Phyrexian Arena, as well as Phyrexian Arena on a stick, and Graveborn Muse. So these are always really good because it's just sort of persistent card draw. And people don't really tend to see them as a huge threat because they're not really doing much. At least they don't seem like they're doing much, but really you're getting a ton of advantage at the cost of 1 life a turn. So these are really worth it. And then Necropotence. Obviously this is the best card advantage spell in the deck. Yeah, there's not much to say. If I have Reliquary Tower, then this thing is especially broken, but really it's just amazing on its own because I can get as many cards as I want. It's pretty hard to lose the game once I've resolved this. So next I'm going to take a look at the tutors in this deck. And the tutoring suite is really what makes this deck, because it basically means I have access to all the cards in my deck almost all the time because I have so many tutors in this deck. And basically means that whenever I want, I'm going to have my big mana, I'm going to have my discard spells, I'm going to have my spot removal and my sweepers. So these are really, really important, and this is what makes black really good in this format. So Vampiric Tutor and Demonic Tutor, these are sort of the straightforward ones that go into every deck. At 1 and 2 mana, these are really efficient. And these are one of my favorite cards to have in my opening hand. Beseech the Queen is pretty efficient too, at 3 mana. The fact that I have to reveal the card is kind of unfortunate. This used to really suck when I had Emrakul in this deck, but now it's not as big a deal. Especially because my biggest tutoring target is Cabal Coffers, which has a converted casting cost of 0. So Beseech the Queen is pretty solid. Diabolic Tutor, 4 mana, but again, it's really good. Demonic Collusion. This one is interesting. It costs 5 mana, which is just sort of on the brink of being a bit too expensive, but the fact that I can reuse it, that's really handy. So I have a lot of cards that'll sort of fill my hand up, and sometimes I won't have a purpose for all of it. But if I have this in my hand, it's a recurable tutor, it lets me get rid of the dead wood in my hand, and that's a really useful and unique spell. A couple more tutoring effects here. Expedition Map is great, especially in a deck like this, because the best card is a land. So that alone makes it worth a spot in this deck. But if you remember, I had a bunch of other really useful non-basic lands, and so this thing will get me. Urborg is usually a good choice if I already have Coffers. Something like Wasteland, Beseiju, Bojuka Bog, Valras Stronghold. I've got a ton of utility lands, and this thing is very versatile. Liliana Vess, always a good choice because I can usually try and get a couple tutors off of her. This deck is really good at keeping creatures off the board, so she can stay protected really well, and I can get a few uses off of her. Her first and last ability sometimes come in handy. Usually this last one isn't that good because I'm not running a bunch of creatures in this deck, and recurring them all doesn't help very much, but being able to get a discard every turn is sometimes useful. But like I said, mostly she's here as a tutor. You shouldn't overlook the transmute cards when you're putting together a tutoring suite, because some of them are actually really versatile. Dimir Houseguard, this is a creature, but I have absolutely no reason to cast it. I can't really take advantage of its ability or anything other than its transmute. 4 mana is a pretty useful slot for transmute. I get access to Disc and Damnation, Graveborn Muse, so I have some card advantage effects there. It also gives me both halves of a combo that I'm about to talk about later on, as well as this other really deadly card, which I'm also going to talk about in a minute. So, Dimir Houseguard, definitely worth a spot. You just have to make sure you have the right targets for it. And then Brainspoil, another transmute card. This one is actually kind of worth casting sometimes. It's a decent spot removal spell at 5 mana, destroys a creature. Mostly I'm going to transmute it. So I have access to stuff like Liliana Vess, Promise of Power. Gauntlet of Power is probably my favorite target for this, but also Head Games, and that should not be there. Head Games, destroy someone's hand for 5 mana. So now I'm going to go through that stack of other random goodies. Mind Slaver, I love this in any deck that can generate mana fast, because taking someone's turn can be really deadly. It can also be useless, it depends on who you target and how you use that turn. But this is the kind of card that can either destroy the game or, you know, at least cause a lot of fun for you. So I really like this card in a deck like this. Sorin Markov, usually this is a staple in black. It's kind of less interested in this deck because mostly I win with general damage, so setting someone's life total to 10 isn't really that useful, but it's definitely good in a lot of situations. This first ability isn't that bad. I actually use that a lot because this deck can definitely use some life gain, and the ability to Mind Slayer someone's turn, like I said, it can definitely be game changing. Next up we've got Crucible of Worlds. This card really serves one purpose in this deck, and that's to protect my Cabal Coffers here. Like I said, it's the most important card in the deck, and black does not have a lot of ways to protect it and bring it back from the graveyard. So I'm running a somewhat narrow card here, because I'm not running a lot of fetch lands or other ways to abuse Crucible Worlds. And actually that's the reason that I'm playing Wasteland and Strip Mine, just to sort of justify this card. That's a pretty douchebag combo, but in multiplayer it's not that bad. It's just useful utility. Next we've got Yawgmoth's Will. Definitely one of the best cards in black, especially in a deck like this, which has access to so much mana. If you can cast this late in the game when you have 20 mana, you can, blow up everyone's hand, blow up the board, and, do all kinds of nasty things. So this is actually another way to get back Cabal Coffers from the graveyard, which is pretty useful. So I've used it on turn 3 just for that purpose sometimes. So it's a pretty versatile card. Usually this will win the game the turn you cast it. Exsanguinate. Originally I was not a big fan of this card. I actually didn't really want to put it in this deck because, like I said, I don't usually win with regular damage. I win with combo or general damage. So unless you can generate, 42 mana, I don't think this is a very practical win condition in this deck. However, the reason I added it was because, as you saw when I showed you my card draw spells, this deck loses a lot of life very fast, and I've had some games where I've lost just because I've spent too much of my own life. So really, the main purpose of Exsanguinate is a life gain spell, and it's pretty efficient at that, because if there's 3 other players in the game, and I have 12 mana, I can gain 30 life right there. So that's the main purpose, but it's also a decent win condition sometimes. I've never pulled it off, but who knows. Some more interesting disruption cards here. Sadistic Sacrament. I kind of regret having to play this, but really, if you're not in blue, you need to have some way to disrupt your opponent's combos. Sometimes the mass discard spells just don't do it, so you have to target your opponent's deck. And basically, for 3 mana, I can exile 3 cards from my opponent's deck, or I can kick it and get 15 cards. Basically, it's up to you if you want to hold on to this or cast it on turn 3. Depends on the kind of deck your opponent's playing, but usually you can tell if someone's playing a combo deck, you're going to want to resolve this as soon as possible and get rid of the key pieces. Stuff like Time Stretch, that's a good target. Kiki Jiki, you know the kind of cards that I'm talking about, especially if you've been playing this game for a while. Imp's Mischief, this is definitely a unique card, and I just sort of added it to the deck for fun, but it's actually proved to be pretty useful. Mostly this can redirect a Time Stretch for a 10 life, which is really useful. Taking 2 turns is something that black doesn't do very well, but it's nice to be able to have access to that effect. This is mostly just a huge surprise. No one's ever going to expect you to pull this one out, but it's your answer to counter magic, it's your answer to spot removal, it's your answer to other people trying to mind twist you or something. So this is kind of an interesting spell. I think it's fun. And then this one, Infernal Darkness, another one of those old cards that got dredged up for EDH, because this is a very interesting effect. Yeah, you're paying life and you're paying lots of mana, but that's something you can afford to do. Basically, you're shutting down all the players who don't run black, and even if they do run black, that's not going to give them access to ways to deal with this enchantment. So even if you, have to keep paying the upkeep, even if you can only keep this up for 5 turns or so, that's 5 turns where your opponents can't do anything, and you're just sort of establishing board presence. You're probably mind-twisting people and destroying all of their cards. So this is one of the best cards in the deck. It's definitely dangerous, and this is sort of a hidden gem for black and mono-black control. And lastly, I am running the Leyline Helm of Obedience combo. It's a pretty cheesy combo because neither of these cards is particularly good on its own. Leyline of the Void, it's nice to be able to do some graveyard hate, but there's definitely some better ways to do it. So really these cards are in here specifically for the combo, and it's a pretty lame combo actually. All it does is just deck someone instantly. You can only target one player with it, but I'm playing a deck with a ton of tutors, so it's nice to have a way to tutor up a way to just kill somebody instantly. That's handy if there's a player I don't like at the table, a player who's been doing some stupid things and deserves to die. It's pretty useful. You might actually want to use the ability on Helm of Obedience. I don't even know what it does. All I know is that it kills people. I've used this to, mill somebody 1 card after a Mystical Tutor, for example, so you can be creative with it. But like I said, mostly just here to kill somebody, which is fun. So I think playing this deck is pretty straightforward. The first thing you're going to want to do is use all your cheap tutors to grab Cabal Coffers and get this out as soon as possible, because once this is on the table, you're generating so much mana, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Once that's the case, you can sort of set up your board with more mana, take your opponents out of the game, deal with their creatures, blow up all their permanents, blow up their hands so they can't do anything, slap Infernal Darkness down so they can't cast anything, and then just sort of set yourself up with a billion cards. And at that point, you've got a few ways you can win. There's this cheesy combo which can take someone out of the game right away if you need to. You can cast some Eldrazi and just get everyone to scoop. But the best way is just to play Drana, and some glare there. Play Drana, and she can swing in for general damage. With all the mana you've been setting yourself up with, she can swing for 21 points in one turn if you need her to. So, yeah, that's the deck. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's very cheap. Most of the key cards are uncommons, and you know, there's lots of redundancy, lots of tutors. I think that's what makes Mono Black really good. So, thanks for watching, and leave some comments if you think you have something to add. Black actually has really strong card draw, but it almost always comes at the cost of life, which isn't that big of a deal because you start off at 40 life, and you can usually afford to pay it.